So I love that. By the way, Dean, let's change that from go garbage in, garbage out to goodness in, goodness out. Not to be self-righteous about it, right? It's not, look at me, I'm so good, but
it does make a difference.
It's like everything in life, right? You get out what you put in. Mr. Dean Miles, good to see you again.
Mr. Brilliant Miller, I look forward to these times together.
Me too. Another episode of the Coaches Commonplace book podcast. And this is a podcast that we've created as a way to spend time with each other, to learn and grow, to share things we've learned, particularly with coaches who are new, or maybe they're established or looking for ways to take their impact, their income to the next level. So how to be a great coach, how to earn recognition and money, how to live a good life. Foundational premise of this. Things that all sound simple. Maybe they are, not always easy. How's that sound?
It's the stringing them all together, right? That is the craft of being an entrepreneur, the craft of being a successful coach that's having impact and being able to pay their bills. Two really important aspects.
That's right. And maybe that's why it's called a practice, right? It's
indeed.
A one-time thing. As we've discussed before, it's a noun. It's a verb, not a noun. Or is it the other way around? We do both, but it's a noun. We have a practice.
That's right.
Which we bring to life. We verb our noun. That could go a lot of ways.
That's a book title.
Yes. Verb your nouns. So, okay, Dean, I like to start. I know you and I think we're birds of a feather in this way. I think people listening, learning nerds, personal growth junkies, we're interested in being our best selves, helping others to be their best selves as well. What is inspiring you lately? What has been part of your information diet?
I have had the privilege of reading 2 books that are in final draft. So they're just the longest PDFs that you could ever receive in an email. One's called When Leaders Lose by a good friend of mine, Glenn Williams, who's been a coach for a very, very long time, lives in Australia now. Some of his own personal story of just sometimes it doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. And then what do you do? So he found himself terminated, some things outside of his responsibility, but yet the buck stopped at his desk as the chief operating officer. And he wasn't ready to be fired, right? I mean, he's got bills to pay and he had a vision and all those different things. And so as he tells his own self-discovery, so that's been interesting to watch and to read. And then he's asked me to give an endorsement to the book, of which I've done. And the other one is called Be Coachable. So this is the final draft of a book that Marshall Goldsmith is co-writing with Scott Osmond and Jacqueline Lane from the 100 Coach Agency. And it's this idea of, okay, so you've chosen to be coached. What does it mean to be coachable? And so they're the 3 of them experts in the field, and they've interviewed 20 different coaches. And I was selected to be one of those coaches. Brilliant. I'll just share my experience of 20 years of coaching, of what I think it takes and what it means to be coachable. So that's been fun to see.
Why do I think the people who might most benefit from that book will never read it?
No, that's true. And so one of the strategies behind this, and it's for larger organizations, I think is how this book is going to be used. So if you work for a Ford Motor Company and they're trying to instill a coaching culture, it will be like a required reading for an entire team.
Wow. That When Leaders Lose, what an amazing thing to be so open about that. And not so long after it happened, it sounds like.
Right.
It reminds me a little of that. I've never read the book, but I came across a book one time called So You've Been Publicly Shamed. Right?
Wow.
Like, what a random thing. But there are people out there that have had this experience of whatever reason, being under public scrutiny and finding that be unfavorable. But I do, as you know, I love books, and I'm grateful that people will take decades of their life experience or an intense personal experience from a period in their life, put it into 200 pages. You can buy it for $15, read it in 6 hours. And it's amazing.
That's exactly right. Brilliant. So Glenn Williams, I think his firing, this is probably close. It was probably 15 years ago. Just went and dug himself a hole. Left the country, went to Australia and just disappeared for a while. and then went to a lot of therapy, went and got a PhD. And then just along the way, just some deep introspection, learned some things. And so now is putting it out there for all of us to be able to learn what he learned. It's really powerful. It's really, really good. I'm glad I read it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Congratulations on being included in this book, Be Coachable.
Yeah, I'm excited about that.
Look forward to when I get my copy, you'll sign my that chapter for me.
Yeah, indeed.
Awesome. Well, cool. A few things that I have been reading or using. I actually want to start with a product.
Wow.
You might have come across something like this. So this is a bag called Silent Pocket. I think that's the product name. It's by a company called Silent. Their website, it's spelled SLNT. So they take the vowels out. And it's a Faraday bag. So when you put a device inside it, when you put your phone inside it, it severs all the connections, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular. It's like it just disappears from the grid completely. So I bought it because I thought this would be great for creative stretches rather than turning the phone on and off, which can be annoying and things like that. It's first world problem, right? But just how easy it is to put in here, or if I'm driving, or if I'm in a meeting, sometimes then a very deliberate helps me to be more conscious about when I'm interacting with my device. So I don't use it all day, every day, but when I do, it's with intention. And I think it's actually a really cool thing.
I really like that. My mind goes into just how I'm always looking for good metaphors to use for coaching. And I think that could just be a metaphor of there's times I need to put my happiness in something like that. Where it's just protected.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It just is. It can't be interfered with or dinged or notified or pushed or just a safe space.
And other times you got to take that happiness out and let it radiate. Right?
Okay, metaphors break down.
There you go. So I've been enjoying that. Most of their versions don't have this. This is actually so you could lock it with another lock. I don't know who I got it because I could put an AirTag on the outside. Yeah. In case I lost my phone, I could still use the Find My and find my phone. Yeah, wouldn't that be ironic if you
that
put
would
it in there and then you couldn't find the device? But anyway, so that's one thing that I've been enjoying and I hope benefiting from. And the other, I've been reading a couple of books. One is about golf. So one of my new passions and challenges, who starts golf in their 40s, but as you know, I have. And a friend recommended a book called Golf in the Kingdom by Michael Murphy. And apparently it's some kind of a classic in spirituality in golf. It's a little bit unusual in many regards, but this guy, Michael Murphy, he's the founder of Esalen. So the legendary personal growth and spirituality retreat along the Pacific Coast Highway. It was popular, I think, in the 60s and 70s, especially, where many teachers came and many thought leaders convened. And apparently he was a golfer as well. And so he's written this. It's kind of a parable, but I'm finding a lot about it that's very thought-provoking, including, just these different ideas of maybe golf was a sport that evolved as a way of men, this game that was once the game of kings and nobles and royalty, that it's a way for them to compete without war. It's a way for, especially men, of course, women, many women play golf, but you're using a club, but it's not a weapon, and it's a way perhaps for whenever someone tells another player like, hey, great shot or nice job or amazing drive or whatever, that it's like a socially appropriate way of actually telling another person, I love you, like these kinds of thoughts that I just geek out on. And I've been really digging this book.
I like that. I think my experience on the golf course, I also see, of course, not myself, but men throw such clubs, bend those clubs, right? Throw them in the water. It was just in the news today. Two older guys, probably my age, got upset with the speed of play of two younger guys that just happened to be mixed martial art fighters. Let's just say the old men dads did not fare well in this fight.
No.
So anyway, but I like where you went, where this book is, some of these positive things from this game of golf, but it does reveal a lot of our character. I find golf, it stretches me and aggravates me in ways that I just didn't know I could be aggravated.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you there. And I think there's so much about it that it's really an amazing sport. And it took me a long time to discover that for myself, which is a whole other discussion that I won't go into at this time. But what you shared, and I think I saw that video. There's a video of that golf brawl, right?
Yeah.
I saw that online. But it makes me think of something related to golf and the power of language, because I found this social media post. I'm going to see if I can pull this up here real quick. But the question was posted like on this social media forum about what's the most rage you've seen on a golf course, like, and then invite people to share their stories, right?
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting. So here's this one poster says, my dad tells his rage story. He was having a bad day and he was down in a gully. After about 3 attempts to get out, he said, for 2 cents, I'd give up this effing game. His smart-ass buddy tossed 2 pennies at him. He left his club and ball in the gully and his bag and pull cart where they were, and he walked off without a word, and he didn't play again for 30 years.
Wow.
And I thought about that, right? We never know. We never know where someone is.
Yeah.
Right, in their life, what's going on with them, their internal state, even what's going on, in their relationships and their career, things like that. We don't know necessarily the power of our words and the impact they'll have on another person or our actions. And for something that I think that person didn't anticipate. No. This would be the tipping point to push his friend over the edge of walking away from 30 years, right? So to me, that was just a reminder of the power of language, the impact that any one of us can have with something that seems insignificant, inconsequential. You just never know.
Wow. Yeah. What a powerful, great reminder that is.
Yeah. The other thing that I've been reading lately, and I just finished a few days ago, and in fact, later today, I will interview this author, is a book called Finding the Words, Working Through Profound Loss with Hope and Purpose. And there's a book by Colin Campbell. It's a really amazing story, true story of Colin and his wife, Gail, were traveling near Joshua Tree one evening, I believe it was June 12th, 2019. So just before the pandemic. He's got, his wife in the passenger seat, his 2 teenage kids, Ruby and Hart, in the backseat. Drunk driver, 90 miles an hour, doesn't brake, T-bones their car, kills both of his kids, totally changed their world in an instant. And he just shared what that was like, how he's continuing to process the grief, how to live, how to ask for the support he needs, how to make sense of it at all, how to deal with despair. And he's a writer. He teaches screenwriting. He's actually won or was nominated for an Academy Award for some of the short films he made. But he calls it Finding the Words because he found that over and over and over, people thinking they were offering him solace would say there are no words. And so he thought that's kind of a cop-out.
Right.
If you say there are no words, that means there's distance between us. It's not worth trying. Ultimately it's futile to even attempt to language this or understand and connect and so forth. And so he's written this as a way, again, of helping people who are grieving, helping people who love people who are grieving. And although that's not me, I certainly haven't had a profound loss like that of 2 children. I find literally I cried when I read parts of this book. It was so touching. And I'm grateful to Colin for writing it. And I suspect that many, many other people will find his words, I would say, healing. But even that, he talks about, look, time, people say time heals. Time doesn't. He calls BS on that. He says time doesn't necessarily heal, but what it does is it allows us to make space in our heart,
right,
for the pain and other things in life. But it's not that there's a healing that takes place. I think he uses the description that he'll always have.
And probably with this, and with those times you find words. I really like that idea and that challenge. And even as coaches, we do 2 things. I mean, we're helping that client find words, and then we're also ourselves are trying to find words to inspire and to shift perspectives. Yeah. I'm just struck brilliant by We do this nearly every week and have for months now. And you and I read a lot. And I think we're on both sides of we represent different sides of this enjoyment. I think you really enjoy it, and I'm still learning to enjoy it. But it's necessary. My coaching is so influenced by reading. And so those of you that are listening and watching this podcast, there's no shortcut to being a great coach if you're not reading. This information diet.
Yeah, absolutely. I think about something I heard Tony Robbins say where his mentor, Jim Rohn, had counseled him to read every day and at least 30 minutes a day. And when he asked, like, what should I read? It doesn't matter. That's what Rohn would say. It could be a magazine. It could be for pleasure. It could be a scripture. It could be personal growth, right? It could be an industry-related publication. In a way, it kind of doesn't matter as long as you're ultimately reading broadly, but you're doing it regularly. And Tony said, but every day. And that was when Rohn said, no, Tony, you don't have to worry about reading every day, only on the days you eat.
Message received.
It's kind of important. But that's true, right? Like, we know in the same way you are what you eat physically, that I think sometimes we forget that literally the things we consume become us physically. And the same thing with what we consume mentally, emotionally, intellectually becomes us, right? And we all know the GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, but the opposite of that hopefully is true as well. Like beauty in, goodness in, intelligence or knowledge in, out. So
well said.
So I love that. By the way, Dean, let's change that from GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, to goodness in, goodness out. Not to be self-righteous about it, right? It's not, look at me, I'm so good, but
it does make a difference.
It's like everything in life, right? You get out what you put in. So with that, let's go ahead and transition. Let's go ahead and transition to the next part. Speaking of words, speaking of language, right? Last time we connected for a Coaches Commonplace podcast, one of the things we talked about under the banner of helping ourselves and those who are listening and watching to earn recognition and money for the work we're doing, the coaching we're doing, right? One of the things you and I explored, Dean, was the idea of using creative briefs as a way of bringing ideas to life. And I talked about this as something that I was introduced to maybe 10 years ago by a friend of mine who has a background in communication and design. And evidently, for him or maybe for people in that industry, that's just kind of standard operating procedure. You're not going to go make a big ad spend, or you're not going to go embark on a long creative project like a book or a film if you don't have a smaller version of it, right? Sometimes called maybe a treatment or a synopsis, or, we might call it a pilot, but like even smaller than that, a chunk, like a 1-page, 2-3-page thing, maybe an executive summary. You could think of it like that. But a creative brief is a structured document that I'm sure there are many ways to approach. But what I've got is I actually have a little file that I save in my Evernote. And when I began something new, like this Coaches Commonplace podcast, the School for Good Living podcast I did a few years ago, sometimes for live events, sometimes for products I'm developing, like a group coaching program, I'll sit down and I will pull out my little Evernote file. And I can always find it because I've called it Elements of a Creative Brief. I realized I could do a screen share, move into the 21st century here, but I wanted to talk about it. So let me pause before I dive in to the elements of a creative brief, describe, how I use it, why it might be helpful to people, and just ask, is this something you've ever used, you've had exposure to, anything like it? Like, what's your experience with this?
It's not to the level where I could be utilizing the tool. The closest I've done brilliant, if I go back, 18 years, was just creating a business plan.
Sure.
And an element of that business plan were just some of these ideas of being able to gain momentum, to be how will I be known? But that was a long time ago. My default to, here's what I really am going to, here's my excuse. I just start stuff. Mm-hmm. I have other people on my team. So Ken, if you're listening, stop smiling. Ken is really good of being the other side of the conversation that I'm not having myself of. So Dean, what's the goal? Mm-hmm. And how will you know? And what's the exit strategy? How will you know that this isn't working? And I'm more like, Ken, come on, it's a buzzkill here. You're killing this. Let's just start. And so I'm very much of it feels right. It looks right. I'm excited about it. Hit record. We'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
Sometimes that works. And a lot of times it doesn't. And it's really expensive.
Yeah, it can be for sure.
Creative brief would have saved probably a lot of zeros over my last 18 years.
Yeah. Well, and hopefully if, this is useful, you can use other people who maybe weren't familiar with this or aren't already using it can use it and save themselves some of that expense, and not just the financial expense, right? But the time,
right?
Maybe the opportunity cost. And part of what I love about a creative brief as well is that, first of all, it makes your ideas a little more concrete than just what's floating around in your brain. You can share them more easily with other people in writing, right? And how often we think we understand something until we go to write it down.
It's so true.
So it helps us to clarify our writing. It helps to preserve it. It helps to be able to share with other people, to get their input on it, to preserve it historically as well. So we can refer back to, we can refine. Maybe you do this on a cycle, annually, quarterly, something like that. So those are some of this. And I was reminded as I was preparing for this that, a few years ago, I interviewed Beth Comstock, who used to work for GE. And I believe she was the first female vice chair for GE. So very experienced business leader, incredible acumen and vision and capability. And she talked about, in her book, Imagine It Forward, she talked about, well, it wasn't exactly a creative brief, it was along the same lines. So this is like a variation on the theme that maybe someone could use instead, which was she would write a press release from the future. And it would be, hey, wow, the day this thing is real, the day this thing is rolled out, what is it that would hit the business wire? What is it that somebody might find online? What is it that we would send to a journalist to see if they actually want to do a piece on this? And, she might sketch out a few things. She was fortunate to have a communications team. She could maybe give to someone to help, just a few bullet points to draft out. Right, but then it's like, it's a little bit like that warm, cold, more of this, less of that. Yep, we're on track. No, that's not right. Oh, I forgot this. Right. But same basic principle that you're working backwards from an imagined future. So just an idea.
Yeah. Here's what's making me think of brilliant. If I go back 15 years ago, there was a lot of noise out in the social media space, but it wasn't as much as it is today. If you could just get the discipline of writing, if you could get the discipline of just putting anything out there, you could be ahead of the game.
For sure.
I think what you're challenging me to, and I'm sure our listeners, it's worth more than that. If you're going to compete, I mean, this whole idea of this commonplace is not just to be a coach, but to be a great coach. Right. And if you're going to be a great coach, this is the habit to have, is to go through a creative brief. So I think all of us are waiting for you to please quit teasing us.
Tell me what it is.
Tell us what's in it.
Yeah. Yeah. And in just a moment I will, and I'm reminded, like you said, whether it was a business plan, right? Whether it's a creative brief, whether it's a press release from the future, whether it's a quarterly OKR document, like whatever, that helps us envision the future, envision what success looks like. And then I'm reminded of the quote I've heard attributed to Eisenhower about plans are worthless, but planning is everything. Yeah. Right. And there's a time for execution, and there's a time for analysis, and there's a time for anticipation and imagination. So it's not to get stuck in any one of these modes, but to recognize where we maybe benefit from spending a little more time in another one of those. And then, as we know too, this idea that no plan survives contact with reality, right? So no matter how thoughtful it is, the Mike Tyson thing, everybody's got a plan, so they get punched in the mouth. But to have a plan. And then the last thing, what you said, Dean, about just getting started, we've probably all heard this saying, the secret to getting ahead is getting started, right? So there is a time to just get into it. So let me get into the creative brief.
Okay.
Here's what I see. So I think there are 7 elements. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, I've got 9. It's 9 elements. So that's a lot. There's a lot to cover.
I'm ready.
Okay. But the first one is the background. I might say 10 because I would have a title, Like I would actually call it, if this is the creative brief, I probably wouldn't write one for a blog post necessarily, right? Like an outline for a blog post, but this might be like the creative brief blog post, creative brief. So that's the title. That's what I would probably put as number one. And then I date it. So I have a sense of when was this thing created. If I've updated it, then I will just say revised this date. So again, there's a little bit of versioning. Then the first thing I'll put is background. So this is one of the most helpful parts, is where I just start to do a brain dump. It's like, boom, where am I? What is true? What's in my way? Like what other resources are available? So what's the background? The background might be like, I've been wanting to write a blog post about creative briefs for a long time, but for various reasons have never gotten around to it. I'm at the point where I'm ready to do so. Let's go. Like that might've been my background little thing. Boom. Okay. Reader has some context. Next thing is the objectives. What are the objectives? And then you would just articulate that as though you were speaking to a friend, right? So if my objective is to share something that's been useful to me with others in a way that they will also benefit from, and to enjoy the challenge of the creative process. Boom. Okay. That's my objective. Okay. Next is target audience, right? Who is this for? And I think getting that out early makes the creation process much easier, because now we have a real person, whether it's a kind of profile or an avatar or a specific person, right? And sometimes it can be one person, but who's your target audience? And then what's your key message? If you could reduce this to a bumper sticker, is there something like, hey, creative briefs are great, or creative briefs will help you to accomplish more in less time with less stress, or something, right? And then execution tactics. Well, that would be maybe, largely text. Maybe I'll have a photograph to accompany it, or an example of one of mine. Maybe there'll be a link to another thought leader's, sample creative brief, something like that. Creative considerations. Now, again, that's like, what are the creative considerations? Well, I'm not going to do this using video, or maybe I am. You just say, what are the creative realities of this? Am I going to narrate, something? Is it going to be an audio file, whatever, which goes right hand in hand with the mechanical considerations. So you might have the creative considerations that will drive the mechanical considerations, or the logistical considerations. I call that either one. And it's like, hey, I'm not a great video editor. I could use some help in that regard. Or a logistical constraint might be, if you're writing for a piece, like a publication, the constraint might be, this must be 500 words. Or something a reader could read in 10 minutes. There's something like that I suppose could be a creative or a mechanical consideration. It's kind of a gray line there. And the last one is measurement. It's actually second to last one is measurement. How will you know that this was a success? That can go along with objectives, of course. But what's your measurement? Is this, 1,000 readers? Is it 5 shares or whatever? What's your measurement? That I just completed it. That might be it. I got it done. I shipped. And then the final one is next steps. Because by the time you've gone through all that, while you might not have absolute clarity, you're going to see the next steps on your path. And if that's, again, a brain dump, it might be a couple things. It might be 15 things as next steps. Some of those you might delegate. Some of them you might schedule right then. But just the practice of that. And I find that going through all of this usually takes me about an hour. It might even be a couple of sessions. But by the time I've done it, I have more confidence. I have more clarity. As I've said already, it's easier to share with other people. And I just find this is it's a simple thing that can be incredibly valuable.
Brilliant. I'm so glad you shared this with us. My mind goes to a little bit of, okay, I think I've been doing this, but in my head, the opportunity, and it's just not the same, is taking that time to put it down on paper, sit with it. There is something about powerful for me, at least, when I go to bed and then wake up in the morning. I don't remember anything. And I know there's much is forgotten, and then it's just more difficult to share and get other perspectives around it. I'm curious of where do we tend to get stuck, in doing a creative brief?
Yeah. Where I tend to get stuck is by the time I get to the mechanical considerations, that I find that I'm often stuck there because I can't see all the how. Right. But I actually like like, I'm okay with that because I've got enough clarity and enough momentum coming from that top down of just the background and the objectives and so forth. And then that's also where I'm usually ready to share this with somebody and invite them, especially if it's somebody who might be involved in the execution of this, in the further development of this. And then usually what you'll find, if you're with the right people for you and you're in the right setting, that this thing almost writes itself by that point, right? If you've got other people who are also committed, they're also invested, or somehow they'll benefit from this, then it's like it's kind of like when I do workshops where I teach goal setting and people share what they want in life, that always the energy in the room goes way up, right? When people talk about what they want, what they're excited about, the future they want to live into. And that's what a lot of these meetings I've seen happen is people, they're like, oh, there is a plan, there is a vision, there is a pathway, there are resources available, and then I can help. And then boom, people will start helping to write this out. But like I said, it's usually in that mechanical considerations for me.
Yeah. You talk about just, getting to that point and then sharing it with someone else. I just can't help but to think about Chat GPT now, to be able to give this list as a prompt.
Oh yeah.
That this is the title, or this is the background. This is what I'm trying to do. I think this is my target audience. I think this could be my key message. Help me, Chat GPT, with some creativity around some tactics, some considerations, both creative, mechanical, logistical. What would be some good measurements for those? Because sometimes I don't even know what I don't know. So to use something like that as an assistant could help those of us that just don't have that much experience with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And right along with that, I do want to point out that what is absent from this, but can fit into the mechanical and logistical considerations, is budget. Right?
Yeah,
it's not
for
because
real.
This is intended to be something to help with that divergent thinking, the creative and expansive thinking first. Now, yes, there's always resource constraints somewhere, but part of what I like about this document is it frees us up to be forward-looking and creative without getting stuck on all the hows and all the limiting factors. That at some point, yes, it's important to acknowledge those, but not at the outset, I think. And it's like that saying that doubt kills more dreams than failure ever will.
Yeah.
So this can help to get it out. And there's that, famous saying in writing, don't get it right, get it written. Like, get it down, start.
So good. So good. I mean, you and I have many friends that have pushed you and I separately and even together on this topic, that until it's clear on the inside, it will never be clear on the outside. I think Sam Walton had a quote similar to that. And I also think about Marshall Goldsmith's comments of, you've got to be competent and you have to be known as competent. That being known as competent is really, really challenging, because if you can't even self-describe what your objectives are and who your target audience is, it's hard to be known as competent when you're just anything to everybody. Right. And I can't introduce you that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So thanks for exploring this with me today, Dean. I know you and I have talked about this before, and we did last time. And I said, I find this really valuable. I tend to only use it a few times a year, but sometimes it's little things that can make the biggest difference.
I think the challenge can be from twice a year to I'm sending out way more messages than twice a year. It's almost something I probably should look at, if not monthly, but weekly. Not creating a new brief, but even just going back to briefs of where is it now and what's still true, and are the objectives still meaningful?
Yep. Yeah.
Are the key messages still relevant? I think about that, the acronym for Mr. T. I pity the fool. But Mr. T, if you guys don't know who that is, Google him. But is it meaningful? Is it relevant? And is it timely? And I heard that a long time ago, and it helps me to go back and think about things that I'm doing, and does it fit the Mr. T test?
Yeah, I like that. Well, cool. Well, Dean, with that, I know we've got a little time left, and we typically like to to touch on all three of these facets of good living, earn recognition and money, and be a great coach. The other two things I had in mind that we could talk about today, one about good living. I thought we could talk about a specific breathing practice. The one about being a great coach, I thought it might be valuable to explore making commitments, how and why. What do you think? I doubt we'd have time to explore both of those in a meaningful way. What do you want to talk about? What do you think people listening and watching would maybe most benefit from? Where do you want to go with this conversation, Dean?
Yeah, I'm gonna blend them together. I have a story of where breathing and a commitment come together for me.
Are we allowed to do that? This is like choose your own adventure, Dean. Turn to page 79 or 80.
And I like
okay, proceed.
A and D. I got this Aura ring many, many years ago. So OURA ring.com. And one of the things that this ring measures is your heart rate variability and just your overall restoration. And so it will give a prompt to do a breathing exercise, of which I've just been a skeptic of. I mean, that's some snake oil thing, and I don't have time for that. So I wanted to see if I could beat this system. So I would tell it that I did it to see if it would give me different numbers. And it didn't. And there's other times I did it and I didn't tell the ring that I did it, and my numbers did improve. So there wasn't some placebo effect. It seems so insignificant, brilliant, to do these breathing exercises, these breathing mindfulness moments, 3 minutes to 7 minutes. I'm not talking about half hour, not talking about 60 minutes, those powerful as well, but something as short as 5 minutes can have a measurable, statistical, meaningful, significant level impact on my restorative, regenerative aspect of my human being.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me that it's that impactful. Now, am I willing to make a commitment to do it? That's how I blend these two things together. That idea of commitment. I'm no longer impressed with ability. As I know, I'm less impressed with ability. I'm less impressed with insight. And I find myself less impressed with results. What really has my attention these days is someone's ability to make a commitment, to do what they say they were going to do, where they're continually to develop their integrity, where they're known as doing what they said they were going to do. I'm impressed with that to my core.
Yeah, me too. Well, and hearing you talk about, the power of breathing, even in relatively short time frames, 7 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, I think even a single breath, like literally a single conscious breath. Years ago, I became a certified heart math trainer. It's an incredible organization. If people don't already know heart math, they're based in the Redwoods in California. They've been studying heart-focused breathing for more than 20 years. Very scientific approach. Team of researchers and scientists, and also trainers. And just some of the things I've learned truly changed my life from a single breath. And then it totally squared with what I've learned from Tony Robbins about what creates emotion. Because this is a whole other thing that I geek out on so much, because it's one of these often invisible determinants of our experience, what the inputs to emotion are. But I could go a lot of ways with this conversation, but I did want to point to the power of literally a single heart focused or a single intentional breath to start to shift our mood and our physiology in a lot of ways. And in particular, when I put breathing on this as a possible discussion topic today, I was interested to talk a little bit about the Wim Hof breathing method, which, I've heard is based on or resembles at least an ancient Tibetan breath practice that is called tumo, or fire breathing, I believe is what it's translated as. And there's obviously many, many different types of breathing practices, but this one is very intense. And it's something that I committed to trying for at least a week. I said, look, I'm going to try it for a week and see what kind of difference it makes. I know last time we talked, Dean, part of what we talked about was the cold.
Right.
Cold exposure. So, Wim is a teacher about cold therapy and about breath. And this one particular practice is something that is pretty intense. So anyway, that was the little bit of the background. And I just wanted to explore that with you, see if you've done it, see what your thoughts are, anything like that.
Well, I can't help, and I wonder who else is listening. When I talk about breathing, when you talk about breathing, I just become so aware of my breathing.
Yeah.
And so you guys can pause and go back about 45 seconds. You'll see me take this deep breath. We shallow breathe so much.
Yeah.
And to take, it was just a great reminder, brilliant, the power, significance of just a good cleansing. Man, I can feel just tension being released.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing. It's totally amazing. And, I did a program with a teacher named John Wineland years ago, and it was on intimacy. And one of the things that really stayed with me from that workshop was John said that love cannot flow through tension. And whether that's physical tension because we're so tight, or whether that's emotional tension in the atmosphere of our relationships, that love, I don't know that it can't, but it has a much harder time, right? Like tension is not a conductive material for love.
Yeah, so good. Powerful.
Release and relax and make space for and allow what is or what could be. So yeah, I'm with you there. And then I'm reminded too, when I've spent some time learning with Sadhguru, the mystic and guru, that he makes the statement that if you know how, when you observe one's breathing, you can see their entire past and their entire future. That's his claim.
Wow.
Just by watching the breath. I'm like, that's pretty amazing. And then I think about the fact that the first thing we do when we enter this world is to inhale.
Yeah.
Is we inspire. And the last thing we do is we expire. It's literally the last thing you do when you die is you exhale. And just how amazing, right? But okay, so where is that? Dean, you could take almost any one of these topics that are like right in front of us, easily available, not often talked about, that can make an incredible difference in the quality of our lives. And I could geek out on it for, if not a few hours, a few days.
Yes.
But I do want to talk about this Wim Hof one. And I want to acknowledge that I'm a little bit skeptical. Like I don't say skeptical is the word, but I don't like talking about like a technique or practice with someone's name on it. It's just a little hard for me. And on the one hand, I get, we connect to people. We're interested in people. We relate to people. So I get that. So there's a part of me that doesn't love that it's the Wim Hof method. But if Wim Hof is the one who's taken this practice that was available to all of us.
That's right.
And now he's sharing it broadly. Okay, it's the Wim Hof method. I get that. But this practice is one where the basic practice is that you take 30 inhalations and exhalations as fully as you can. Like it's not the kind of thing you would ever want to do in polite company.
I think I would pass out.
You do.
Or get, I would be lightheaded for sure.
Yeah, it does. And it can be dangerous for people who are in water, people who are driving, right? People maybe who have medical conditions. I don't know. It can be dangerous for sure.
So it's not fast, but it's deep, it's complete.
Yeah, it's complete. So it's and so whether it's in through the nose and the mouth or just in, so it's not pretty. I guess that's the gist.
Yeah.
It's a full inhalation. It's like part of the practice is as intensely as you can.
Okay.
And then the exhalation as intensely as you can. And then no stopping. Next inhalation, next exhalation, 30 times. Like a bellows. Right. And then when you get to 30, full exhalation, hold. Then you hold your breath as long as you physically can without
fully
hurting yourself.
Oxygenated. Yeah.
Deoxygenated, right? Because you're holding on the exhale.
I gotcha.
So you're creating an anaerobic environment, which then Wim, and I think the science tells us this promotes a lot of good things in the body. This helps reduce inflammation. promotes and I don't know, I'm not going to pretend to be a scientist or a medical practitioner on this.
Right.
I know how it feels when I do it. Right. So you do that one time. Second cycle, same thing, 30 inhalations, 30 exhalations at full intensity, hold on the exhale. I should say, the way Wim teaches it, you actually do inhale fully and hold for 15 seconds after each cycle. But I'm at a point now, and some people literally can go minutes, which is amazing to me. Because if you pay attention, like if you practice, it's much easier to hold your breath on a full inhalation than a full exhalation.
Right.
And Wim has an app that you can, and it's free. And then there's a paid version, but you can use, he guides you in this. So you do 3 cycles of this, 30 breaths, full exhalation, hold as long as you can. Once you can't hold anymore, then you take a full inhalation, hold for 15 seconds. Do the next round, same thing, next round, and then stop. I've been doing it for the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure how long I'll do it. I'm subscribing to this idea, repeat yourself as long as it is interesting.
Yes.
I will tell you that I feel great. This is one component. I'm doing the cold every morning too. Like I feel great. And it is the kind of thing that I find, and I've shared it with a few friends, privately on Zoom calls or when we're together. But I just say, when I look at what I see as some form of, I don't want to call it insanity, but some form of unworkability in our society, the tension, the aggression, the lack of maybe kindness.
Right.
My hope is that whether it's this method, and I know nothing is for everyone, this method or something else, that people will find something to help them connect more fully with themselves, with other people, life itself. So I just wanted to explore this one with you and see what your experience was and your thoughts were and stuff like that.
I need more of that. Through my career of coaching, I've found myself introduced to these types of topics way more than my normal corporate life exposed me to. And so whether it's Dr. Shrikam Rao, Hugh, a few others, when they'll start a call with, hey, Dean, just pause for a second. Just put your feet flat on the floor. Let's just do 10 deep. I'm always shocked about how significantly my body responds in the positive to that.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit embarrassed that I have to be prompted by another human being, that I haven't made the commitment just to do that on my own. I want to be cynical of that. I want to make fun of it, but I cannot deny its impact on me.
Yeah, man. And here's part of the way I see that is so much of our work about coaching is helping people to lay down new grooves, right?
Yeah.
New patterns. Part of what creates that is pattern interrupts, right? And if you as a coach can actually, in that time and space you have with the client, disrupt in a good way, in a loving way, the day they've been living, the life they've been living, the identity they've been inhabiting, and you can bring that. That's exactly part of what you're there for. It's not your brilliant insight always, right? It's not all of your knowledge and learning and like all that, but what a tangible way of helping to demonstrate the power of a pattern interrupt. Just a little breathing exercise.
Well said.
So, well, Dean, I know we're just about at the end of our time. What's our final thought? If there's a thought you want to leave hanging in the universe, leave listeners, viewers with, leave me with, Dean, doggone it. What is it?
I think the creative brief, brilliant, is seriously write that down, write those 10 steps down, and at least so forget about a new idea. Go to the last idea you had and run it through the brief. That's what I want to do. So I don't want to wait for maybe the next idea because I'll procrastinate. But what was the last idea I had? And I want to run it through the brief.
Awesome. The final thought here in this conversation today that I want to share is one that came up in a coaching session I recently had with my coach. And she said something that I had never heard before. She said it was popular in personal growth circle years ago. She said, when you learn what so, it's always good news. Right? There's a lot of times in life, things that we don't really want to know. We don't maybe have the courage to ask, we're not ready to face. But when you know what so, whatever it is, it's always good news.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. That'll land. That'll preach, as they say.
All right, Dean. Well, thank you for making time. Thank you, everybody watching and listening. I hope you found at least one idea that will, in fact, help you to live a good life, be a great coach, earn recognition and money, enjoy what you do, love yourself more fully, maybe be more healthy, happy, meaningful. And Mr. Miles, I hope all those same things for you, my friend.
Yeah. Take a deep breath.